Hello, everyone, friends and beautiful people. It is Catherine Massell, Elevated Consciousness Coach and 5D Visionary. For those of you who are not familiar with me or don't know what I do, one of the things that I focus on greatly in my work is the topic of ascension, elevating consciousness as we ascend in our awareness and what that means and how to do it. And I teach programs about that, group programs, as well as individual teachings and mentorship. And my signature program, Timelines Expanded Masterclass, talks about the structure of time in quite a bit of detail. We talk about the nature of time itself. We talk about the structure of time. We pick apart the structure of time. We talk about timelines. And we discuss ways to work with and manipulate the time-space fabric in 3D and beyond. And this is such an important and essential part of moving into ascended consciousness, because it is the very structures that hold our attention, focus, and energy within the 3D time-space matrix that have to be dismantled, or we have to opt out of in order to move into ascended consciousness and be able to stay there without rejecting that level of awareness. Time is one of those structures that locks our consciousness into loops, ways of being that we keep experiencing over and over and over again. And until we have a good grasp and understanding of time, the structure of time itself, even how it works, how humans create time, we are kind of doomed to keep repeating those same consciousness loops and patterns and programming that have kept us in a level of density here, in a level of darkness here, arguably, and keeps our DNA from accessing higher elevated codes of consciousness as we experience more photonic light quotients hitting this planet and forming our consciousness to go higher. We can't sustain those levels in the body. We can't sustain it in the fields in and around the body if we are still opting in to the illusory nature of 3D time. So this is really, if you don't know me, this is my wheelhouse. This is what I love to talk about. This is what I geek out on big time. This is my zone of genius. This is truly something I love to explore, and that's why I love teaching a group program about it. And I'm going to be teaching it again in February of 2021. I always have a self-study version of Timelines Expanded Masterclass available. This is my signature 11-module program about the nature of time and time itself, and working with and manipulating the layers and levels of time. And when you join the self-study program, you will always and ever have access to when I do teach it live. So if you are interested in this program and you want to get your feet wet now and get into the self-study program, you are more than welcome to do that. And at no extra charge in February 2021, when I'll be teaching this again, about the first week of February, you will just be able to have access to the live program. Now, the price before I do teach it live, it does go up. So you have an opportunity to save at least $200 now by joining now. And you get access to the program. When I teach it live, I always add new material. I always freshen it up. Not only because it's boring for the people who, it's not boring, but it can be a little dull if you just hear me regurgitating the same stuff over and over again. It's fascinating to work with this stuff, but it's even more fascinating when there's new material added and the pre-existing material gets freshened up with some new ideas, some new concepts, and some new tools and tricks that I always like to share when I teach live. So it will go up in price right before I announce the live date and ability to opt in at that time. So why not save yourself some bucks and get in now? This is an incredible program. There's also a Facebook group of support for you. So as you integrate this material, you have access to the Facebook group where you can ask me questions. You can tag me and get your questions answered. And you have the support of over, I think, 58 members, 59 members in the group right now, who also love to share their experiences and support you in there as well. It's a very dynamic program. It's very comprehensive. If you have been intrigued about the nature of time, about timelines, how they work, how humans create them, how to work with manipulating the time-space fabric, with quantum jumping time, with bending time, merging time, then this is the course for you. And it really is one of a kind. There is not another program out there like this that is this comprehensive, this hands-on, this practical, and this usable in your life now. It's not just academic, it's not just conceptual, it is practical, it is applicable in your life now with real-time benefits that might even amaze you. So I wanted to take this opportunity not only to plug this program and to talk about when I'm teaching it again, but I want to talk about a little bit about the nature of time, about clock time versus spiritual or zero time. And so if you reject the idea that you have the ability to manipulate and control time, you are rejecting then the possibility of ascending into elevated consciousness, since the ability to increase your frequency, increase your awareness, elevate your vibration, it goes hand in hand with the ability to move beyond the grasp of clock time or 3D space-time. Clock time is collapsing. This is happening. After about 2012, 2013, when we experienced what I believe to be a mishandled ascension event and a tampered with ascension event, we have been experiencing something since then that is an accelerated sense of psychological time, meaning that's how we experience time. And we experience that as time collapsing. This means that as we collapse a lot of timelines, we experience it as time speeding up. So a lot of things, and you could probably cast your mind back to 2012 or around that time. And in less than a decade, you may, when you do this mini life review, feel that you're a really different person now than you were at that time. You know, this is not imagined. This is your sense in a very real way in your stream of individuated consciousness, pardon me, of experiencing the speeding up or the accelerating of time. Clock time is collapsing. And as a result of this 3D time space collapsing, it feels psychologically as if time is speeding up. And as we move into elevated consciousness, time does speed up. So all of these things are synchronized. And it's no coincidence that as hypermasculine paradigms and structures that have held reality in place on Earth for thousands of years now are dissolving. And so too are the timelines that are relegated to left-brained aspects of reality that have dominated our 3D way of being. And moving into zero time involves an increase and rebalancing of the right-brained feminine aspect of time. And this balance of left and right-brained hemispheric harmony, respectively, is a signal. It's a signal of our readiness in preparation of accepting elevated consciousness and for graduating from the 3D Earth reality realm and into ascended consciousness. So if you're intrigued by this, please keep listening because I'm going to fill in the blanks a little more here. So learning to use the technologies of higher dimensional reality now, it helps you to graduate from, let's just say, the 3D Earth school, where you are bound to an outdated and outmoded reality realm of physical clock time, okay? We believe we are at the mercy of time here, in other words, in the 3D time space, but nothing could be further from the truth, especially as we ascend into elevated consciousness. And as a 5D visionary, this is how and what I teach, that we are moving past this outmoded reality realm. And what I do is help to, let's just say, reverse engineer. I look ahead into these reality realms. I see what is possible. I see these potentials or timelines for where we're going. And then I reverse engineer the bridge work for helping us cross that pathway to where we're going. This is how and what I teach, essentially. And I give you the tools yourself how to do that. So as more people on the planet learn to embody these tools, the more we tip the scales towards the collective shift in the next octave of ascension consciousness. And when I say octave of ascension consciousness, there are stations of ascension. It is often misbelieved and thought about in a way where ascension is a singular event. It's not necessarily how it goes. There can be very large, colossal, paradigm-shifting singular events, but there is no singular event in and of itself that signals ascension. It is stations of awareness. It is stages of awareness. And moving from the density of our physical 3D being is all about being able to access these different stages or stations of awareness in order to ascend. One of them is learning how to opt out of clock time, or learning how to manipulate then the time-space fabric beyond 3D time. So as more people on the planet learn to embody the tools of, let's just say, manipulating time as one example, the more we tip the scales towards the collective shift in that next octave or station of ascension consciousness. And then we can progress to the next level of our spiritual evolution. So let me stretch your consciousness a little bit here. So take a deep breath. So sometimes as we hear this stuff, we want to go out of our body. We feel stretched in our consciousness, and so we're not present. We're not here. And just take a deep breath and call all parts and pieces of you in. All timelines where you're playing with contrast, just go ahead and call all of those in. All of those threads of consciousness, threads of awareness, those timelines back into your present now moment, okay? The indoctrination of, let's just say, observed time that humans have been following since well before the beginning of the Gregorian calendar, which is what we use today to mark time. It has kept us in a strictly linear observation of time and is based on cause and effect. And the early inventions of measuring and regulating time were made to divide the day into the night, or into different periods of, in between the day and the night, in order to regulate work. In the earliest parts of using, something to mark time, it was for agricultural purposes or even ritualistic purposes. So the lengths of the time and the lengths of those time periods used to mark time or identify time, they varied greatly from place to place and use to use, and from one culture to another, and making time completely relative. And an important thing to remember, it's never really changed from being completely relative. We've agreed largely to certain parts of using time and marking time, but it is still completely relative. That hasn't changed. Clock time also, it's a human invention. That's an important thing to mark and remember here. Clock time is a human invention, and it's created as something to be bought, sold, and traded. It's commodified in a world where survival consciousness has reigned as the predominant mode of being. And in a way, clock time locks that survival consciousness in place. When you are looking at the clock on the wall and you're trying to get out of that boring meeting, or when back in the day when we used to have meetings where people gathered together, and you would look at the clock and you would say, oh God, I got to get out of here because I got to do this, 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 and this. Oftentimes when we are looking at our watch, we're looking at our clock, we are marking or identifying some way of being through that. And oftentimes it is limited and a contracted way of being. This is how time kind of loops us through different survival consciousness scenarios and continues to. So the Gregorian calendar, which we now use, and it was devised and decreed as the new calendar back in 1582 and this replaced the Julian calendar, which was a Roman calendar. And so this new calendar was introduced and decreed by Pope Gregory in 1582. And it solved the problem at that time of a system that was making the calendar out of sync with the seasons. And it would also serve to keep Easter, a Christian holiday, as close to the spring equinox as possible, which, as we know of Easter, it is borrowed from a pagan holiday, and even the pagans borrowed it from something that pre-existed even paganism and Celtic and Druidism, etc. But this was roundly rejected, okay? This adopting of this calendar, this decree of this marking of time, this was roundly rejected at first and very controversial because it removed 10 days from the year, or what we had collectively agreed upon was what was a year up to that point, so that it could sync up the calendar again. But this also had a Christian agenda, obviously. It had that Christian agenda of moving Easter closer to the spring equinox. So that had that Christian agenda that a lot of people, were like, yeah, not so cool. And this was a new system of keeping time. But from expelling all those days from the year, where did those 10 days go? Again, time completely relative, okay? So, and even though the Gregorian calendar is accepted as an international standard, several countries have not adopted it. Again, making time relative. So this includes Afghanistan, Ethiopia, Iran, Nepal, Saudi Arabia. So this makes time, you guessed it, completely relative. So there's a bigger takeaway here that I'd like to illuminate. And that is that the earliest archaeological evidence of the human observance of time is indicated by significant changes in the environment, in our outer reality. Seasonal winds and rains, the flooding of rivers, the flowering of trees and plants, and the breeding cycles or migration cycles of animals and birds all led to natural divisions of the year, and further observation and local customs led to the recognition of seasons. And this was a feminine alignment with time. This is a feminine observance of time because it was an alignment with Mother Earth. And this was a way of aligning with the feminine right-brained aspect of cyclical living rather than linear, which is highly illusory. So even when the Romans began to mark time through a lunar calendar, which was up until about 46 BCE, it still honored the feminine right-brained aspect of cyclical and circular living, where there's no end and there's no beginning. But it does honor one of the universal laws, which linear time does honor some universal laws, but there's an important one that's honored with that right-brained, feminine, cyclical living, which is the law of perpetual transmutation of energy. And the law of rhythm also is honored as a universal, immutable law with the cyclical observance of time. So as time got more and more fragmented into mechanized, measured time, it took humanity into that mental shift of really left-brain, masculine, linear time. And this is where we've stayed. And when that happened, that began the illusory reality of time, the physical time, the clock time, where humans created and have become trapped and almost imprisoned in a lower dimensional perception, which is clock time, human time, rather than real time or spiritual or zero time. And we move into zero time as we access dimensional realities beyond 4D. Clock time still does exist in the kind of limbo of 4D, not in the same ways it has the dense structures of 3D, but it's still kind of the same translation of it. Beyond 5D, there is zero time. And I know this is a nebulous concept, but if you want to know more, sign up for my program. So we've been at this level of perception for a really long time. We've been kept very limited, very contracted and controlled by the illusory nature of clock time, of physical time in the physical world, being hyper-physical. And this mentality is keeping us in density. It is looping us through the same level of consciousness over and over again, out of harmony with the sacred feminine, right-brained, cyclical awareness of time, of being, and unable to comprehend time from a spiritual perspective, which is to say that everything is now, but there is a rhythm to it. There is a constant transmutation of energy within that, but everything is now. And it is this balance of the masculine and the feminine, the left and right brain perspectives, that is at the heart of preparing you for a new cycle of physical and spiritual evolution. So it's not that we're going to reject the masculine, left-brained, analytical aspect of clock or physical time, but it's more that it's always and ever been a blending, a balance in our creation template. And we've missed the mark on this in so many structures and paradigms and ways of being in our society, and we see where that's gotten us. We haven't really done a bang-up job of creating our reality here on planet Earth. And it is this imbalance of the masculine and feminine in the entire template of creation, meaning everything we manifest, everything we create, there's been this imbalance at the heart of it between masculine and feminine. So balancing the masculine and feminine aspects of time is one of the things that prepares you for graduation from the 3D Earth School and helps initiate your next level of ascension. So have you noticed that time just doesn't maybe mean as much anymore? Yes, clock time is collapsing, as I mentioned, but psychologically, what is that doing in your body? Physiologically, what is that doing in your body? Do you have a sense of time speeding up at certain times, slowing down all the time now? These things are kind of, tipping the scales back and forth all the time between slowing down time and speeding up time. What kind of emotional states are you in when you notice time is speeding up? Or what emotional state are you in where you're noticing that time is slowing down? This is important because your emotions create a timestamp in who you are, your personal identity, and whatever you're resonating with, whatever you're vibrating at now. We talk about this more in Timeline's Expanded Masterclass. But evolving into light body status, meaning embarking on that journey of remembering who you are in your divinity as your God self, and walking the steps or even working the stages of remembering your way back to that. That's evolving into light body status. That is our goal of ascension, is moving into embodying unity consciousness. And that is what brings us into light body status. And this light body status is beyond the limitations of time and space. Moving into light body status means you are moving into zero time. These things coexist, and they cannot happen without the other. So when you chose, or you were selected, to descend from the divine light being status and come into density, what you were also choosing was to be controlled by 3D time, clock time. And now that many of you are choosing to wake up, that means you must also choose to opt out of this 3D time space, which locks your identity in 3D density into place. You are choosing, as you wake up, to remember who you are and return to light being status. That means you're required to comprehend time from a spiritual perspective. And right now your energy system is relating to the incoming higher frequency light bands, the light quotients hitting the planet, the wavelengths, the spectrums of light, and you're experiencing them in a much different way now than you ever have, because time is accelerating. You moving into light being status, light body status, the next evolution of who you are as a divine human is changing. And if you're giving your power away to clock time, as you always have, you are less susceptible, I can't speak tonight, to obtaining light body status. If you're still thinking about the relativity of past, present, and future, that means you're still chasing the illusion of 3D clock time, because in reality, everything is now. And in your now perspective, you have an idea or perception of future. You have an idea or perception of past, but all that is happening now. And in the eternal now, in the higher dimensional reality, anything beyond 5D, anything in 5D and beyond, there's only now. In the eternal now, which is also zero time or the absence of clock time, there's also only love, because there's unity consciousness. So where maybe have you been noticing all of the clues, the cosmic breadcrumbs, I like to call them, that are being dropped right in front of you, that are leading you to opportunities to exercise unconditional love, radical compassion, and to be a divine guide for others, to lead them out of duality and help them ascend? Because it's not just about you or me anymore, it's about us. That's unity consciousness, folks. And if you've been noticing this, you've been following that trail of cosmic breadcrumbs of, how to hold less judgment for others and be in maybe more discernment from your higher self perspective. Learn to be more compassionate, empathic towards others. We're all empathic, but are we exercising that? That has to be a free will choice. Our deeds, our actions, our words, reflective of that higher level of compassion that is indicative of unity consciousness. All this goes hand in hand with opting out of 3D time, which again, to circle back around to what I talked about before, locks us into survival mode consciousness. When you're in survival mode consciousness, you are not accessing the highest level of your creativity. You're not accessing unity consciousness, obviously. You are more concerned with life from the ego personality level of being rather than the higher self or unity consciousness, Christed consciousness level of being. You have free choice. You have free choice. You can choose to embody these new light frequencies. You can choose to prepare for ascension. You can choose to opt out of 3D clock time. You can choose to work with and manipulate the layers, levels, and fabrics of time, zero time, that is beyond 3D clock time, beyond physical time. But that means you must choose to be here now. This also means choosing love. This also means choosing to release yourself from the illusory 3D time loop where you believe you are controlled by time. So you can surpass this light time reality and move to the next one. Staying attached to the old earth structures like clock time makes you a vibrational mismatch to the new earth frequencies, and it makes your physical body ill-prepared to tolerate the vibrations of being beyond 4D. Time is one of the illusions of the 3D earth school of reality, and it has been an important challenge for our evolution. We needed it, in other words, until now. And in the internal and infinite unfoldment of the eternal now, all of the versions, timelines of you, that in your contracted 3D perception have fragmented your identity of who you are to past, present, and future. In the internal and infinite unfoldment of the eternal now, all of this comes together as one. And it's time to prepare your body and mind for physical ascension. That means it's time to prepare your body and mind for working past the confines of 3D illusory clock time. And for those who are really open-minded and have been preparing for the shift by waking up, the opportunities ahead are really unlimited. There are infinite possibilities for you to explore. If you didn't know, I teach a very, very comprehensive 11-module program on the nature of time itself, the nature of timelines, and how to manipulate and work with time for your benefit now. And you can read all about this in the self-study program in my member vault. I'm going to put the link down in the comments so you can check that out. And again, if you sign up now, you're already enrolled, you're golden for when I teach this live program again in February of 2021 and at no extra cost to you. And you have lifetime access. So with the massive shifts occurring on this planet, we have a unique opportunity to release ourselves from the entrapment of clock time and to learn how to control time energy, because time is just an energy. An essential part of your expansion as you ascend and move into light body status is to transcend clock time, rejecting the concept of zero time. It keeps you from fully waking up and opting out of duality, meaning you're still going to play that polarity, duality, contrast game and stay in the same loop of consciousness, the same level of awareness that you always have been. And this choice, because it is a choice, to stay in this level of awareness, it makes you unprepared and ineligible for the consciousness shift that is ascension. This may sound like a bold claim, but it's absolutely true. It is absolutely true. So if this intrigues you, if what I've said here kind of makes your ears perk up, it makes you kind of warm up in your body, it makes your throat chakra tingle, it makes your crown chakra tingle, there's a reason. Maybe you came to this video for the very reason that it is time for you to opt out of clock time and learn how to do it. This is a program that's very hands-on. The tools are there, the support is there, and you can start getting your feet wet with the modules in this program right now. You can start learning this right now. And then you'll be ready Because I always tell my people when they're in this program, you're going to want to listen to these modules twice anyway. And then all the modules get freshened up with some new material every time I teach it as well. So how are you preparing for physical ascension? Are you ready to opt out of clock time? Are you ready to learn how to practically apply the tools of manipulating the fabric of time beyond 4D? And have these tangible benefits show up in 3D and 4D reality now? That's what Timeline's Expanded Masterclass is all about. It is the only program of its kind. How do I know? Because I looked for one, and when I didn't find it, I created it. So blessings and love and peace to you all. Thanks so much for watching and listening. Love and peace.